Hello and welcome to my Communication Design Presentation 2, in which I'll be displaying my two finished artifacts. Just as a reminder, my chosen famous figure is Elvis Presley, and my target audience is young people aged between 13 and 17. When beginning this project, I had two main initial goals. The first was to educate young people about the King of Rock and Roll. I think it's important for young people to know about the music of the past to appreciate the music that they listen to today. Because without Elvis, acts such as Bruno Mars and Britney Spears may not exist. Getting the colour palette is also right when creating infographics, as you want to line up the colours that the person that you're talking about with the product that you make. For example, Elvis wore a lot of reds, oranges, yellows, and whites, which are colours that I used on my products to replicate the date and time of when he was living. Getting the typeface right as well is important, as you want to capture the time and date of when Elvis was around. Using modern fonts would capture the modern day, which is not what I want to show and represent. So typefaces such as here, Stalemate, Oswald, and Seaweed Script capture the fonts of the 60s and 70s, which was when Elvis was around and at his peak. And here is my finished static graphic. I apologize for the blurry image. During the time I was making this, I did test different colors such as yellow, orange, and blue with the background. Unfortunately, I'm unable to show these as they are at college, and obviously at the moment I'm unable to go. The heading reads Elvis Presley. Obviously, that's the man I'm talking about. Also, I'm not sure. I can't exactly remember which font I used for this heading and the description. Although I do know the font that I used for the main bulk of information. The font I used for this was the Arial font, which is the standard font that people use to write things on computers. I use this also as the typeface for the birth and death of him, as these two events are linked and are vital in his timeline. The icons I used are down here in a strip, as they capture the audience and the people looking at it immediately. I created this infographic on Adobe Illustrator and used the pen and outline tool to create these icons. Most of these were of existing images already, but I added my own flair and color to it to make it my own. The gravestone that can be seen at the bottom isn't exactly how Elvis's actual gravestone is, but as it's an infographic, I wanted to caricature it as a standard gravestone, and as a comedic touch, adding a comedic touch, I added a toilet seat on it as well, which is where he died, which hopefully will give youngsters a laugh. The the blue shoes pictured at the top is to represent Elvis's famous blue suede shoes. Unfortunately, I didn't do anything with this, as this was a late addition to the graphic. I wanted to add some facts about them in the graphic. Unfortunately, I didn't have room, so I put them there anyway for effect. My initial plans for the second artifact, the motion graphic, were as follows. I wanted to mix Elvis's music with facts and figures on screen to allow young people to hear his music maybe for the first time potentially. The language that I would use would be simple and not wordy, so young people would understand what I'm trying to say. And I would use the similar icons to the static graphic to show that they are linked products and made by the same person. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19 and my current situation, I'm in lockdown and haven't got access to Adobe Illustrator at home. So instead of creating the motion graphic, I decided to create a storyboard instead. This represents the story that I wanted to tell and what information would be detailed in that motion graphic. I would start out with his birth, obviously, showing a rock and a bread roll on screen would add comedic effect as the term rock and roll put them together. The second scenes would show his birth and his early life. Then I'd go and talk about how he became a worldwide success with his music and play a bit of his plays snippets of his most famous tracks, such as Blue Suede Shoes. Then I'd go on to talk about his private life, such as his marriage to Priscilla. Then I would talk about his later life and his struggle with his weight, which led to his untimely death on the toilet seat, and rumoured to be eating a burger as well, which I would add for comedic effect for young people, as I think they might find this concept quite humorous. And finally, with the final scenes, I would discuss how Elvis's music lives on despite his untimely death, and how, for years to come, his music will be remembered as he was one of the first musical stars to have a personality and to dance as well as sing. I've learned a few things during the time making this project. Firstly, I learned how to use Adobe Illustrator. Before beginning on this project, I'd never used Adobe Illustrator before. So now, moving forward, if I were to create another infographic or have to create another project using motion graphics or still graphics, I would hope I would successfully be able to try this. During this project, I also learned how to market for a target audience, linking all the different aspects of the project together and not creating something that is a mishmash of different elements for different audiences. And finally, obviously, I learned how to cope and complete a project with limited resources. Although I was unable to start making the motion graphic, I created a storyboard to represent what I would have done if I wasn't in my current situation. Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.